this is quite the video. If you have not seen it by now, then this is a spoiler for what's going to happen in Dragonflight. It is the next step in the future of the Night Elf storyline, and it's coming sooner than many people expected. So, thanks to an unfortunate inclusion on the PTR, this made it public, and that means that now that it's out in the wild and the cat's out of the bag, it's time to have a chat about it.
For soon, Azeroth will welcome from the dream a symbol of hope, and together we shall protect it.
Yeah, so that's Alexstrasza calling the new Night Elf tree a symbol of hope for everybody, pledging to protect it, and saying that Azeroth will welcome it from the dream soon. Strap in then, because that means there's a lot to talk about. First, the file name is 101WTR1920. So it's actually going to be in 10.1, meaning likely, that's like an end quest line that will be unlocked after Aberys is done, kind of bridging us into the next patch and storyline. That probably means it won't be a long, grueling quest line, instead probably a quick, in and out thing. How they're going to connect Aberys to this is a complete mystery to us, but there is a clue, and that clue is ice. In 10.0, the story was all about the storm and Razageth. In 10.1, it will become about fire, specifically Shadowflame, Farak's abuses of it, and the Sundered Flame basically chasing Neltharion's legacy. Following that logic then, patch 10.2 is likely going to have a lot of ice, but also nature. The Ice Primalists were the ones who wanted to get that seed in the first place during the level up experience, and the first thing that we see Veranoth do in that Opening the Way cinematic is freeze the trees, the grass, and the water. I don't know, is that foreshadowing? It does kind of seem like a thing they'd do if they wanted to foreshadow. Right. There's a lot to talk about, but to cut a long story short, or a long theory short, between the Emerald Dream outdoor icons that pointed to us being in the Emerald Dream, those were data mined in 10.1, probably an accident, and then of course adding to that the way the story has been split up between the Dragonflights and the Incarnates, with Ridderkron seemingly just sending his family at us while he does something else, and very important, whatever it is. The evidence is mounting that Dragonflight is basically going to look like this. 10.0 is Razageth, the Primal Storms, the Primalists capturing Onara, more storms, establishing the Isles that we've seen. Which then leads into patch 10.1, which is Farak and the Sundered Flame underground. Lava, Shadowflame, with some of the Cosmic thrown in as well, along with some more Blue Dragonflight story. And then patch 10.2, which leads us to the ice. This could be Veranoth's full-scale assault on the Emerald Dream. I mean, just think about that. The Emerald Dream is where the nightmare spread across Azeroth via the World Trees. So imagine if ice could do the same. If Azeroth's blueprint, as the Emerald Dream has been called, was frozen over, then maybe it would look a bit like this. Yeah, that sure would wash away the Titan stain, because they used the Dream to mold Azeroth a bit. Also, the Primalist future suddenly makes a lot more sense now, and not that far in the future. I mean, maybe it was called the Primalist Tomorrow back on beta for a reason. They changed it to Primalist Future when they shipped the game, but it used to be called the Primalist Tomorrow, and a patch within this expansion sure does feel like tomorrow. There's also then all the extremely obvious themes here. Ice, frost, winter. It's the unpleasant but inevitable form that nature itself takes, and Veranoth sharing design elements with Winter Queen surely cannot be an accident. Winter, of course, is synonymous with death, which then ties us to Ysera's new blue form, and the only reason Tyrande sacrificed Malfurion to bring her back was a small emotional push, and to be honest, a fantastic hug scene for Marithra. Now, the tree, even, has that same blue reaching up into the stars, again, mirroring that scene from Ysera's death. That's a gun that's yet to be fired, if nothing else. Hopefully, that happens in 10.2. So, if 10.2 is Veranoth and the Greens, that basically leaves, by a process of elimination, 10.3 being about Eridicron and Nosdormu. Remember that sand has kind of been included in Earth, and this still looks like a raid entrance. Maybe his terrible bargains were actually struck with Morzond, and perhaps that explains why Nosdormu can't see what's going on. Like, that's the thing, Nosdormu, he's supposed to be able to, see the timeline, but he's not seeing things. It also explains a few more things as well, like why Galakrond has not been mentioned at all yet. There's loads of unresolved story beats with that looming legacy, as well as Nosdormu, Chromie, and Morzond. And while it might seem natural, I don't think Eridicron's deals were with old gods. And I think that for two reasons. Number one, it would be boring. I mean, both him and Eltharion being corrupted by the same entities, that would not make sense. It would be dull. Two, if he was all old goddy, then he'd be, interested in all the void power that's down in Aberys. But he's clearly just using that as a distraction while he goes away for something more important. And what could be more important on the Dragon Isles? And we're back to the Bronze Dragons. One idea is getting access to the temporal conflux. The issue is that we are in the way, so distracting us and splitting us up seems sensible. There's also a bunch of extra reasons, but maybe I'll cover those another day. Let's get back to talking about that tree. Right, the other half of the story then, the big bloody tree, and what that might actually mean for the Night Elves. So, Marleman, who of course created WoW.tools, which is amazing, and is a big legend of the data mining, just revealed a secret that he's been holding on to for a while, and that is the new world tree will be here on the Dragon Isles, which is, pretty obvious when you look at the cinematic. There was a placeholder box in the first beta build, but recently they found out that the box was supposed to be this placeholder tree model. So that does mean that there will be a big new tree. Now, some people are thinking, okay, this means the Night Elves will get a new home, but it's in the Isles instead of their ancestral lands. And on that, it's hard to say. It would match how Blizzard are generally pushing the story of this expansion, and there's a lot of green dragons who take the visage of Night Elves, so the link is obvious and strong there, at least on the surface. But here's why people are massively pissed off about the prospect. It would also affirm that the Night Elves have well and truly lost everything. Their homes, their legacy, even their unique identity, if they live among dragons. Like, they were Kalimdor. They were the nature-loving, anti-magic, Elune-worshipping, matriarchal warrior society that attacked so quietly the first orcs on Kalimdor, so quietly they were afraid to go near trees. The whole continent is dotted with Night Elf ruins from their pre-Sundering days, all the way to their new, modern, nature-friendly dwellings. If they were to resettle in the Isles, all that would be lost to them forever. That identity would be gone for players. Their entire world-spanning race reduced to one small portion of the Dragon Isles which really has nothing to do with them as a place, except for a connection with the dream. Logically, you could say it makes sense. The story has led to this, but I do think that it's basically a bad ending that nobody wants. It's losing and losing and losing and losing, and at the end, you get a consolation medal saying, "You just kept losing," written on it. That's, I think, what a lot of the core Night Elf fan base will think. I think for their characters and, all of that to be just completely ripped away from the likes of Darkshore and everything, it's just not good. Now, I'm not saying we should just flick a switch and make Teldrassil exist again. No, it's been burned, it kind of has to be gone. But the current lore is that Darkshore is completely destroyed and things won't grow there. It's kind of rough. Now, going back to things, more pragmatically for the story, it would also be an insane blow for the Alliance and the politics of the world, because now the entirety of Kalimdor would be Horde occupied. Canonically, as I said, Darkshore is almost barren of life. right? That was recently said in Exploring Kalimdor. So the Horde could push for total control with zero resistance, leaving only the neutral Hyjal and Moonglade. There would be almost no opportunity for faction storytelling on half the planet. Now, there's a reasonable chance that it doesn't actually become their fully settled home, this new tree. It could act as a home base for a more separated Night Elves instead of one monolithic home for all of them to live in. You know, a future where the Night Elves have a new home in the Isles, but are actually split up around the world trees. You know, nature hotspots and places of worshipping Elune, you know, doing their thing, would be great if it was set up properly. With the loss of Teldrassil, Night Elves handling grief by seeding the new world tree as proof that new things can grow, and then deciding to devote themselves to tending to Azeroth in places like Hyjal, maybe trying to fix up Felwood, going to Desolace, you know, the Burning Steppes, etc. Not as an army or the Alliance's Night Elves, but as something closer to the Cenarian Circle, but maybe that includes priestesses and adventurers, right? Maybe one recognized by the Horde as neutral. You could do that sort of thing. That could perhaps soften the blow and make this new home not feel like another loss, in that it's just, you know, the Night Elves being thrown over here and away from their ancestral home. Another key part of whatever Blizzard do is that the Night Elves cannot be alone in this. Now, we never turned this into a video, but we did make a massive lore deep dive that we thought honestly was just too random that people wouldn't watch it, but one of the things we talked about is how the Night Elves have got two allies that are closer than the game's really ever led on, and that's the Draenei and the Worgen. For a quick TLDR, they have tons in common with both races, and incredible shared suffering. The Draenei and the Night Elves, guilt over the Legion, how they've both spent thousands of years constantly suffering in some way. The Night Elves' responsibility for the Worgen, the loss of a home that all three races have felt. The Night Elves and the Draenei multiple times. That's why Night Elves, they helped and they accepted the Worgen and took them over to Teldrassil. And it's why, when they met the Draenei, they welcomed them with open arms. So now more than ever, it's time for that kindness to be repaid and for Blizzard to not forget, not forget that. Night Elves might have a new tree as a home base, but they should always have places to call home on Azuremist and in Gilneas. And man, the Tauren owe them a debt as well. They're the ones that taught them Druidism in the first place, so surely they can extend some sort of friendly hoof. I don't think we're ever going to see Night Elves back as some massive, incredible civilization of feral warriors like we saw back in Warcraft 3, which personally I think completely blows. That's sad. I think that's what made them unique. People really liked that. But hopefully, whatever this story in Dragonflight, whatever way it goes, let's just hope it doesn't end up feeling like another betrayal of what may have been WoW's most unique race. Then there's the third topic to go into. I'll do it kind of briefly because it's kind of hard to tell where they will go with this. And that is that there's a link between this tree and Arden Wield. Now, hopefully, that remains largely metaphorical as a throwback to each stage of Night Elf history that has involved the growth of this new world tree, even though a lot of that history was kind of controversial to the players. Then there's Ysera's new death-touched form, which wasn't, brought back at such an extreme cost for nothing. They obviously did that for a reason. It's likely that her connection to Winter, to death, to Arden Wield, will prove to be important in the fight against Veranoth somehow. And I suppose however that plays out, Elune will obviously be a part. I mean, this tree, it almost certainly has something to do with her, given, even the likes of, the Tear of Elune stuff that happened recently, then the way that it's projected and kind of mapped onto the stars, visually similar to the saving of Ysera's soul from Legion. There's really a million ideas connecting Elune, life, the cosmos, and how that relates to the new cosmic stuff that we're going to find in Aberrus, but I think we should go into that fully once we've actually all been to Aberrus and we really do have all of the lore. I suppose what I will say is that this now I think this now brings an Azerothian manifestation of things. Like, here's as a really good example. If we went to Arden Wield, right, but in the context of a new world tree, like what's happened here, then I don't think it would have felt that bad to people. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to like the death side of the Emerald Dream. That's how people would have thought of it, right? Instead of going to the big horrible panopticon of terribleness that was Oribos and everything. So like going to Arden Wield just through what looks like a blue dream portal in Azeroth, that would have felt okay to people. It would have felt like nice and normal and established within the game world. I suppose that's partially because Arden Wield as well, like, was the most similar to things that we had already seen in the game. So this could be a way of them taking some elements that they want to use, but rooting them, I suppose literally, on Azeroth. Meaning that we perhaps don't need to go back to the Shadowlands or, any of that. So I think that's kind of going on. With Elune, there's just this whole family thing, Ysera being described as Elune's pet. Elune and the Winter Queen, I think, quite seemingly understanding each other a little bit more. Certainly, everything points towards Elune's, more full appearance being closer and closer. Maybe we will even see Elune in the next patch, right? Like in 10.2. Wouldn't really surprise me too much. It would be odd if we saw the Winter Queen again, but you totally can see it. And with that data mined gear, and you actually look at the tree thing, and you can almost see a little portal in it. So I do have to imagine we will be going to the Emerald Dream again, and that's what it'll be, some sort of attack in the dream from Virinoth. I think being able to see the dream from a different perspective will be interesting. As well, this is the Primalist trying to wipe clean the Titan stain, and when you look at the Emerald Dream, you see all the golems and stuff like that, all these Titan sort of fingerprints are everywhere. All right, we'll probably see more of what those actually are when we go to the Emerald Dream in the next patch, which I think is pretty damn cool. Also, there's certainly a lot that this could open up, narrative-wise. And I don't want to dive too much into stuff that I know would be kind of unpopular, but suffice to say, it's another connection to the dream. Also, seemingly, it's got stuff to do with death. But, Blizzard could do things there. Another side of things, you have all of those world tree, or the 5 torches to light our path. All the things in groups of 5. Swirling around those, there have been many, many, many world tree things. So who knows, right? Because this is seemingly a full, proper, blessed world tree, not some bizarre, unblessed, shitty, homunculus world tree like the one that Vandrel Staghelm planted, that then became Teldrassil. So a lot of that stuff could also figure in. Overall, I'd say I'm fairly interested in this, especially if we're maybe bringing some Tauren characters into the dream. I actually think that could be Blizzard picking up a plot point that they killed in Shadowlands. Obviously, there are more Tauren, here. We have the Bane quest, right? So what happens if some of those go to the dream, along with Night Elves and stuff? Actually, some pretty interesting things. Elune, obviously, is, connected to the moon and all the cosmologies, which is interesting when you think about Elune, existing to other civilizations, not just ones in Azeroth. But anyway, she's got that connection to the moon. Obviously, when we went to save Aeonar in Legion, she hid out in a place called Elunaria, which would suggest to me that Elune and the Titans get on well. If that's the last place that Aeonar thought she could go. And then that's a kind of an interesting thing, because Aeonar, life binder, and then if you were to think that Elune was on a pantheon of life, sort of opposite of the Winter Queen, then what's the relationship between Elune and Aeonar? That's a bit of an unanswered question thing. So there's really a lot that Blizzard could springboard off this. I'll say, to kind of wrap it up then, for what my hopes are, I hope that this symbolically is something important for the Night Elves, but, right, that what they take away from that is a drive to basically regrow, resettle, refound what they lost, right? I don't know if that means that in the next expansion we have a reputation where Night Elves and Druids Night Elves and Tauren try to mend Darkshore together. Maybe the Horde being a little bit penitent for their pretty significant role in destroying that whole area. You could do something like that. I would like to see those places be resettled. I would like Ashenvale. I think probably a good way to do it would be to rebuild Ashenvale, make Astranar like a way more significant settlement, and to basically sow the seeds of regrowth within Darkshore. I think that would be a pretty good way to handle the Night Elves. I think Blizzard can't just cede all of Kalimdor to the Horde. I just don't think that's particularly good for the state of the world in terms of storytelling potential. So there you go. We're going to the Emerald Dream. And after that, we probably are going to have Iridikron, Morazond, Nosdormu losing his mind. And I think likely some of the info we get along the way, like between Deathwing, whatever Emberthal learns, because Emberthal's obviously pretty important when you think back to the time Emberthal spent with Nosdormu in the series of animated shorts before the expansion came out. So I think that's basically where we're going. And I suppose I would also say, to me, right, this confirms 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 10.3.5, 10.3.7, maybe 10.3.7 contains, well, like Season 5? I mean, this certainly says to me, expansion with 3 major patches. Shadowlands was an expansion with 2 major patches. But it's not like we're going to go to the Emerald Dream and then that'll be that. No, so there's pretty much got to be a 10.3 at this rate, which is one of the things I think people haven't talked about enough with this bit of story, which, yeah, is going to mean 4 mainline seasons, and then they'll do their greatest hit season at the end, which they said they would do, just that it's also one that will include world content, right? It won't just be for people who do Mythic Plus and Raid. And that actually does make me wonder, will World of Warcraft's, when will World of Warcraft's next expansion be? Because I suppose then we would be having, obviously, the 10.1 happening like in a week, which is mad. And then perhaps November is 10.2. And then, like, the first third into next year, we get 10.3. And then late summer, we get the, that final greatest hit season. And then maybe November, December, the next expansion comes out, which sounds incredibly bullish, but I guess they have 700 people now, so maybe it's possible. Assuming things we talked about in yesterday's news video don't hurt them. Yeah, weird enough situation, but there you go. That's all I've got. Let me know what you think. I'll see you next time.